And welcome back to After Further Review, post-Thanksgiving style with Coach Heist Northern. Coach, how you doing, my man?
Man, everything going pretty good in the Northern household. You know, the Bridgeland Bears won another round. They won Saturday, and they going to another game against the University of Duncanville. And then the Southern Jaguars won the Bayou Classic, and I can talk a little noise to my sister for a little bit, and a couple people on my mom's side of the family. Most of them went to Grambling, so I could mess with them a little bit. But it was a good weekend. Look, nobody got food poisoning. We fried a turkey and didn't set the patio on fire, so everything was good over this way.
Well, hey, sound like it's a good deal, man. Look,
yes,
we're gonna touch on them Jags in a minute. Now, Coach, I witnessed this game, this Bayou Classic, and it was a hard watch, Coach, for me. And not because, I love the SWAC. I love the SWAC.
Mm-hmm.
But you got it. That was some rough play, especially that first half.
You know what? I didn't get to see much of it, and I know the part that I saw, I may have seen a good bit of the first quarter off and on. So I did see, in my opinion, some good defense and some not so good offense. I saw Grambling block a punt, couldn't really move the ball to score, because you usually think when I get the ball in this field position, we're going to put some points on the board or, get a touchdown out of it. But it was just one of those defensive struggles. Both quarterbacks struggle to find their passing grooves. The running game couldn't really get going because both teams were playing 8-man in the box. It looked like a cover forward, and the next thing you know, both of the safeties sitting at 7 yards off the ball. So it was a really defensive game more than it was offense or bad offense, in my opinion. But when people know you're going to struggle throwing the ball, they're going to try to say, okay, we're going to make them beat us over the top. We're going to take away all the slants and the quick outs and make them have to go deep. And sometimes when you get a game like that, that will happen. And my brother, he used to always say, sometimes, man, the worst thing you can do is play cover zero against a quarterback that's struggling, because now every deep ball turns into a 50-50 pass, whereas if it was a cover 2 or cover 4, those guys have help, and you can stop the run with cover 4. That's the best thing you could do from a defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, from what I understand, it was a hard watch depending on who you were pulling for. And then both teams probably wanted to fire the offense coordinator at the half, and then Southern got rolling with the running game the second part of the game.
Well, it's ironic that you brought up OC, is because my next bullet point was actually, now, from outside looking in, you hear the whispers, but then when you get certain screenshots, there was a distant look in the eyes of Coach Dooley, and a lot of the conversation going on. Saw Coach Joseph talking with another young man instead of Coach Dooley doing some of these play callers, and it seemed like everything was set, but the next destination for Coach Dooley, man.
Yeah, I haven't gone back and watched the games like I normally do because of the travel on Saturday, and I was a little bit under the weather on Sunday. But later on today, I'll probably go and watch it, like I say, from a coach's standpoint, and look at, okay, this is where things went wrong. Okay, like I'm seeing this coach talk or not talk. I'm seeing a coach talking to the offensive line coach, or the head coach talking to the defensive coordinator, different things like that. So I'll look at it from that standpoint later on today. But, I noticed that in a game early, I think they may have been playing Pine Bluff or something. It was one of Grambling's home games. But you can see things like that, but sometimes it may be we see more because you're looking for it. So it's like if you go in your son's phone, you may see some things that will alarm you, but at the same time, it might not be that bad or what you think it is, depending on the conversation or how you look at it. Like I say, pictures, a still picture, if I look at it, don't tell me everything I need to see because I didn't see what happened before or after and all that. So I like to watch the game and see the interaction. And then sometimes you got guys with headsets on. You can talk to people. One year I didn't coach with headsets on, and people thought that was the worst thing in the world. But what I would do, I would just look at the signals of each side of the ball because we didn't have the coach the player stuff back then. So I looked at the signal, or I stand right by the coach, hey, what we got right here? What you thinking? And, my job pretty much was to say, we going for it on fourth down, or if it's fourth down, let's block the kick or block the punt or sit back and not go for it. Different things like that. But the head coach very rarely is involved with the everyday, every down play calling, I would say on both sides of the ball. So, like I said, I wouldn't read much into it, but, I know some of the people are not happy because of the struggles of a senior quarterback who was predicted to be the offensive player of the year, and he struggled getting the running game going. It just was a big struggle across the board for the Tigers.
Right, like you was mentioning, the head coach he's the president, and his cabinet, OC and DC, they running things, and they got their hands, on or boots on the ground, and they get a feel. Now, if you come to a time where you feel like, hey, I want to see this type of play, whatever play you want to call, but I want to go up top. Find something you ain't gonna get us to go up top. You can make that commit call like that, and then they have to adjust accordingly. So it leads to your Jags Coach Frederick. What's missing with that offensive spark, sir?
To be honest with you, man, they played so many quarterbacks. When you don't have consistent play at the quarterback spot, I don't care who you are, unless the 1990 Nebraska teams that would just run it on people, or you have a running quarterback, you are going to struggle in today's college football game when you can't throw the simple slant routes, the pick routes that'll come wide open, the screens. I'm talking about some very sharp passes they not completing because of you had Noah Biden who started. He had only started one game, and that was the Bayou Classic last year, coming back into this season. Then you had the two redshirt freshmen that didn't really play at all last year. So you got three guys that are inexperienced. And I don't care how you cut it up. Their inexperience is going to show sooner or later if they are not supremely more talented than the defense that they playing against. What I mean that is if everything breaks down, can those guys take off running and get you a 3rd and 9 scrambling to get the first down for you. So when you don't have a very athletic, those guys, they're decent athletes, but none of them are the kind of guys where you say, man, we got to spy this guy and make sure he don't beat us. Now, they can get you some first down, but they're not going to break off 60-yard runs unless it's a total collapse by the defense. That's just what I see. And like I said, I look at every, even if I'm watching Southern play, I look at like, how am I going to defend these guys, and what does their quarterback do that might keep me up a little bit late on a Tuesday night when I'm grinding, trying to figure, okay, this is the last night that I can put something in and have it still be effective for my guys.
Right. Now, something that I always criticize coaches on, I don't care what level it is, Power 5, Pee-wee ball, I think sometimes coaches are too attached or in love with quote-unquote systems instead of adjusting the system to the athletes available.
Well, I think that does happen on every level. You take, like say, from the Pee-wee on up to the pros, they think that if you just do what you're supposed to do in the system, well, sometimes, if you have some guys with a rocket arm, they may not be the best at throwing slants and out, but you give them some seam and some posts, they gonna look like the second coming of Doug Williams. But then when you have them, trying to throw a slant route, they can't put touch on it or know how to throw a guy away from a hit or throwing people open as opposed to having to see them open. Then by the time the quarterback sees a kid open, they throwing the ball and then you end up with a big hit like you saw in the Bayou Classic on Saturday. So is you have to make adjustments within your preferred scheme to what that kid can do. And I always go back to, I coached quarterbacks at Grambling for 1 year, and we pretty much had to change our system, our play calling system, because we ended up having to play a true freshman at quarterback, and we changed some of the things, the plays that we called to what he called them in high school. So I'll give you an example. So we might call everybody on all the receivers, they knew 666 wheel or something like that. Where in high school, he called it stick. So one coach may say to everybody on the offense, we running 666 wheel, and to the quarterback, I might point to the first down marker. He knew that means sticks. So we still running some of the same stuff, but we have to translate it. And then we had to leave certain plays out of our offense. We very rarely ran what we call doubles, but you got two receivers on each side. Either we ran trips or empty, or we ran two backs in the backfield to max protect for that kid, because we knew if we went doubles, he probably was going to struggle reading the whole field. But if we went trips, we told him, look, you read the trip side unless you see a physical mismatch. Like if you see, we had some 6'3" and 6'4" receivers on one side with a 5'8" cornerback. You throw the ball to that side, I don't care what else happened in the world. You throw the ball to that guy. So you got to adjust your system to the players that you have at times.
Absolutely. And that's, to me, it's a gray area as far as I'm concerned. And I know I'm a relic. But it seems like guys get too sophisticated for their own good, trying to change the language and this, that, and the other, because they don't want people stealing their plays or copying. And I get all that, but sometimes you make matters worse than what they really are.
Hey, man, I always go back to my first year at Prairie as the defensive coordinator. We changed some things up, and we had a cornerback that could not handle change well. So, like the first drive, we went with the new, what we going to call it, the signals, the new, our cover full, we call it lane. So we did, the signal might be driving the car. Everybody knows driving the car, you got to stay in the lane. Well, after a while, them bullets got to flying. They had Bruce Eugene and Clyde Edwards and a couple other guys that were on NFL rosters for a minute. He said, Coach, they moving too fast. We got to go back to the old way. I don't know what all this other stuff means. So lo and behold, we had to go back to what we call Bruce Eugene. I always say he was the smartest guy I ever coached probably. But Bruce knew the signals, and then to have them, if we went cover 4, he was going to, run a corner route or out route. He knew exactly where all the weak spots was, but that all goes back to, can the players handle the new stuff? And sometimes the new stuff ain't good for everybody. So sometimes you just got to go make a play. But I tell you what, a lot of coaches, and in a game like that where so much familiarity between the staff and the coaches and some of the players with the transfer portal now, man, it's you almost have to have everything written down on the wristband and don't say anything but sit hut with some of these guys these days. But that communication and what you want to do can be an issue from time to time with some of the coaches.
Right. That's no knock on the player per se, but I don't care what level on. You're a math guy, and to ask you, man, I just don't get math. Some people just soak in stuff differently than other folks. Not mean that they're not on an intellectual level. They just learn differently and respond differently. And so I always say it's always good to have reverse. You got reverse on your vehicle for something, because sometimes you got to be able to back it up.
And you know what? And I talk to my daughter about this sometimes. So my daughter, she does competitive cheer and dance. And sometimes she may have to do 2 or 3 dances in one show. Or when she was doing the real competitive cheer, she had to substitute for a girl at a different spot. I'm like, how do you remember that? And, it's like we have terminology, just like y'all have football plays. We have terminology that we use that nobody else may know what it means. But if you tell me do this, this, and this in this dance terminology, then I can know exactly what to do. So, I mean, it's universal when it comes to trying to get people to learn and And like I say, some of us, we can get things real fast, and some of us, it's just like that classroom. You're going to have 30% that's going to get it the first time, 30% that's going to get it the second time, and you're going to have 30% that ain't going to never get it no matter how many times. So it's almost like that.
Sometimes I feel like I was in that group.
Yeah. Hey, look, even in the football meeting room, because like I say, I would tell guys, look, bring you a football notebook just like you go to class. And if certain things you may say, or I might say, that may be a trigger word for you, and I would tell guys, look, draw it where you can show somebody else and tell somebody else what you're doing. And so if you can't tell somebody else what you're doing, then you probably don't have a good grasp. So all of that goes back to, the coaching, trying to simplify it as much as you can and let jokers play fast. Because, man, it's amazing how fast jokers can play when they know where they have a good idea where they go.
Absolutely.
On the defensive side of the ball, if I see an offset fullback or a guy sitting on the hip of the tackle, that joker's going to take me to the ball 9 times out of 10. So I know different things. And, if being a high school coach, you might have to go from the wing tee to the slot I to a spread within a 3-week span. And you have to know the adjustments and how to get your guys to line up to it in a hurry in the high school world. In college, not so much. You're going to see a lot of the same things until you get to option and read option and power football.
I want to go to the defensive side of things. I know you coach both sides of the ball.
Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever had a player where they kind of have a hard time comprehending whatever the scheme is supposed to be, but they just have a nose for the ball, and they are just natural playmakers, football players, and you be like, don't do that. Great job. And you be like, and you go like, you can't, I guess, really coach that to a degree. You have to kind of nurture and accept that, wouldn't you?
Yes. So we had a guy at Grambling. I'm not going to say his name, but we had a guy at Grambling. We ran what we call a 4-4 stack defense, and this is my dad's little league defense that we installed. It became one of our short yardage defenses because it gave us an 8-man box no matter what you lined up in. Mm-hmm. And we had one guy, we wouldn't put him at the Mike linebacker. We called him the extra linebacker. And we just told him, look, if you get a hunch, you take it. If no matter what he did, as long as he didn't drop back in the middle of the field like he was a free safety, no matter what he did wasn't wrong. He could line up on the end of the line of scrimmage. He could line up in any gap that wasn't occupied by a defensive lineman. And we played, I want to say it was Alabama A&M, late in the game. They going for it on 4th down, and that joker got a hunch, and he made the tackle. I want to say it was 4th and goal on about the 2-yard line, and that joker, like you say, he got a hunch. He say, Coach, I saw the fullback looking where he was going, and he lined up in the gap and just took off on the snap of the ball, caused the confusion, and that's how we end up winning the championship. I want to say it may have been my last year. The last year we won the championship at Grambling. But, you have guys that just have instinct. Like you say, they can't tell you nothing what you put on their board, but they know how to look at people and say, okay, the fullback going to take me to the ball. Oh, in this offense, the offensive guard, the weak side guard going to take me to the ball. It's different things like that help guys play fast. And then some jokers, they just, like I say, they get hunches, and you tell them, look, if you see space, take space, and you design stuff for guys. And he was perfect for short yardage. Now, on passing downs, you better not put that boy out there on that field. Because look, they're going to be playing the fight song if you leave him out there on the passing down. I guarantee you.
But that's where film study plays a great role, too. Knowing your opponent's tendencies and what they have. We used to call it pointing. Sometimes the back or the guard would point, and you kind of cheat that way. And 90% of the time, you would be right, but on that 10%, like you say, the fight song is about to get cranked up.
Oh, but, yes, sir.
And so, I'm saying on the defensive side because defense is about reaction, and I always say, maybe I'm being a little partial, I think your defensive players are a little bit more skillful than your offensive players because they have to adjust to the design patterns and cuts and schemes and blocks, and they have to be strong enough, quick enough, tough enough, and somewhat just downright mean enough to adjust, fight through those obstacles.
Yeah, and like, you know, if you talk to the NFL DBs, which I've been fortunate enough to be around them in some training camps, you know, they'll tell you, look, man, we running backwards before we start running forward, so that makes us better athletes than the wide receivers. So, but yeah, it's just instincts, and then you get to knowing things like, okay, is he lined up at the top of the numbers, the bottom of the numbers, the middle of the numbers, the hash, you know, all this type of stuff. It's going to tell you where he's going to get some tips and some clues where they're going to go with the football. But it's just one of those, as a coach and a student of the game, you start to pick up on, and hopefully
right
you make the correct adjustment. And sometimes you make the correct guess, because sometimes you can guess, and then the only thing that happens sometimes, if they hit you with a double move, that's another fight zone starter. But, you know, at the same time, even when they do double moves, they might line up a little bit wider or line up a little bit tighter just to get themselves some room for those certain plays.
Right. Now, you talked about some tips and little insights you're going to need. Let's talk about championship game. Jackson State and your love Southern Jags. Going to be featured Saturday, 1 p.m. at Jackson. Coach, I'm on record for saying, and they say the old movie from Hall Nights, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a rough night for your Jags, brother. I think it's going to be a rough night for your Jags.
Hey, man, it very well may be a rough night for the Jags, a rough day since it's a 1 o'clock start. But I keep going back to it's hard to beat the same team twice. Now, do I think Jackson probably, I would say, maybe has a better looking team, a little bit more eye talent than what Southern does? I would say yes. Especially if you look at Jackson's defensive line and Southern's defensive line. If you look at Jackson linebackers and Southern linebackers, then Southern's offensive line and Jackson's offensive line. If Jackson want to run the ball, just line up and run the ball. If they just put their mind to it, I really do think they can. But at the same time, they got a joker that transferred from Syracuse that they hope can make some plays for them. But I just really think it's hard to beat the same team twice unless you are just that so much supremely talented than they are. But I know Southern, if they keep it close, them jokers gonna think ain't nowhere in West Hill we gonna lose this ball game. So, you know, that's one thing they got to do. Focus on not turning the ball over. Then if Southern goes back and look at their last game and look at yards after missed tackle, that's gonna tell a whole story of the game. Because it was quite a few times they could have got off the field on third down, and a joker missed a tackle, which gave them another first down, or missed a tackle, and Jackson State ended up putting the ball in the end zone. So that's what I think they're gonna look at. So, and actually, I was looking through some of my coaching stuff the other day, and I had a sheet that says yards after missed tackle. That was one of the things that we kept up with on defense. Did the first guy make the tackle? We kept up with that. Then we kept up with Los as well. So in some games we might keep up with one a little bit more than the other, but we always kept up with yards after missed tackle. That's going to tell you the story of the game. And now in today's football, with the field being so spread out with 3 and 4 wide receivers on most plays, if the first guy can make the tackle, you have a high chance of winning the football game.
Well, it sounds like you're blowing off your notes, Coach, to get back into the coaching game. Are you telling us something you don't know yet?
Well, you'll know when I know, but a lot of people do know, and my wife and I and my son and I and daughter, we all talked about it, that once Adam graduated from high school, it was going to be a high probability that I would get back into the coaching ranks, whether it's one of these high schools around Texas, preferably as a head coach, because I tell you one thing, Mike, when I go to certain places, it's funny that I went to one high school, this is no lie, and a joker told me, like, yeah, man, I got the perfect job for you. He said, you could be the 9th grade head coach. And I almost, like, Like, hey, man. And then, look, I go somewhere else, and a guy that played for me was in line. I'm at a job fair. So I go to the job fair, and the head coach at this one school tells me, like, hey, if you can't coach tennis, or he may have said something like swimming or whatever, if you can't coach these sports as well, then I don't need you as a football coach. And the guy that played for me at Grambling said, Coach, did that guy just tell you what I think he said? I was like, yeah, man, he said that. So it was like one of those, they sort of think they doing me a favor, but in my opinion, is being disrespectful. And I actually was going to take a middle school job this year because of the simple fact that they played on Tuesday, and they pretty much at 4:15 every day, they were leaving the schoolhouse. So I wouldn't have missed any of my son's games because of they play on Thursday or whatever day. It wouldn't have conflicted. But I did get some job offers from some schools, but I would only saw my son play when we played against those schools. But, it's one of those. Yeah, I'm 9 times out of 10. Next year at this time, I'll be coaching somewhere. Hopefully, if I'm on the high school, we'll still be playing. My goal is always to be coaching Thanksgiving weekend if I'm a high school coach. That means if you're in Louisiana, you 2 or 3 rounds deep, and if you Texas, you definitely 3 rounds deep or 4 rounds deep in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Well, you will let us know, huh?
Oh yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, very good. Now, when we talk about everything that's involved with the coaching, the prepping, and the schematics, and how things have changed, what's the most, challenging thing that you think you would have to face with what you know and what you would have to adjust to know?
Man, just the commitment level of some of the kids and the parents when it comes to being at a place and the dedication that it takes. So I always, this was the deal with my son. So if you are playing a team sport, no matter what we have as a family going on, you are not going to miss a team sport function. So we went to Jamaica this summer, and me and my son, we cut our trip to Jamaica short so he could possibly play in a game. Not 100% play, but on our schedule, they were going to play on Monday. So we left to get back in time while my wife and daughter and all the rest of the family stayed. So some people, they going to be like, oh, no, we got this vacation plan, and we're going regardless of if we signed up to play for this team or not. Or just say I worked at one school where it was hard as heck to get the kids that were zoned to our school to come to workouts during the summertime, especially the 8th graders that were coming to the 9th graders. Them jokers knew that we had workouts, and they would wait until right before tour-days started. And some of them would even wait until classes started before they showed up for football practice, so they didn't want to go through tour-days. So it's just that dedication of the kids to understand that, hey, I'm a part of this team, and it's like I'm not going to quit unless I'm not going to not play unless I get injured, man. Some of these jokers, if you tell them, just like my son's team, they playing against Duncanville. At one of the schools that I coached at, if we told them kids we playing against Duncanville, 10 of the kids probably was going to quit before the game. They was going to find some kind of way not to get on that bus. And some of them might not even tell you that they quit. They just not going to show up to the bus. So it's just the level of commitment from certain kids. That's why I say, do I have a problem going to a program that needs to be built? No, but I would like to go somewhere where winning is expected, where I say realistic expectation of winning. Because just say some of these schools, a high school that I worked at, a lot of those kids at that school did not play until they got to 7th or 8th grade, and then some of them didn't play until they got to 9th grade. I'm talking about football. So just imagine the learning curve of a kid that's just starting playing football in 7th grade as opposed to, say, a kid in Belleville that's been running the wing T offense since he was 7 years old. So it's just different things like that I know I'm going to be looking for that I'm going to have to adjust to. But, I mean, just the dedication and the transfer portal in high school. And Joker don't don't play a little bit of the coaching from the stands and all that kind of stuff. That's gonna be the biggest thing, because I tell somebody like this, hey man, you sound like you know what you're talking about. Why don't you come coach us? Or I'm gonna tell you, hey man, you really don't know what you're talking about. Can you please be quiet? And if you have a problem with what I said, my office right there. So, and
right.
some
Coach,
people.
I had a situation in past when I was coach. I would go up the list. I said, hey, has anybody over here ever played little league sports? And they're like, yeah. And anybody ever played high school? Yeah. Some of the hands go down. I said, anybody ever played collegiate ball? They get real low. Anybody ever played or got drafted or had a potential opportunity to go professional?
Mm-hmm.
No hands. I said, well, I've been blessed to have opportunities at each level. Okay?
Yeah.
I said, if you would like to be a volunteer coach, you are more than welcome. But please don't contaminate your child on what we're trying to teach them. And it brings me back to high schools. When you're dealing with a high school setting, you almost got to deal with what you got, right? And you can see if a kid has that it factor. You don't have to say nothing. You don't have to ask nothing. You say, man, this kid got it. Do you find yourself pushing that kid, or a kid who has it but don't want to exert themselves? That can be ultra frustrating too, couldn't it?
Hey, man, I had some jokers. I'll tell you this, when I coached at Brookshire Royal High School, so Coach Harrison, who was on my staff at Prairie View, at the time was working at Texas A&M. So, look, I changed his name in my phone to Rason Harrison, Texas A&M DB's coach or something like that. So I would call him. I had a DB that was ultra talented, but he was, he didn't see bigger than Brookshire. So I say, hey man, I'm gonna call you. I want you to tell this kid that y'all are looking at him, and this is what you need to see him work on based off the film that you've seen. So he calls the kid, and for about 2 weeks, he was doing everything that Coach Harrison told him to do. So I noticed, like, say that Tuesday, he wasn't doing what Coach Harrison. I said, hey, man, why you not doing what my partner told you to do? He was like, oh, man, I saw they got a commitment from this other DB, so they don't want me no more. Like, oh, man. So, it's like, come on, just sort of keep on working, man. It's early in the season, but just you try to push guys to see that the world is bigger than where they are. So,
right.
And it's like hard for some jokers.
Transfer portal mentality, man.
Yeah, but it's like, and then some of them think just because they made all district as a 10th grader that they guards get the football, and they don't see that. Hey, man, I'm trying to tell you, okay, you in Brookshire, Texas, but those coaches at Prairie View, right up the road, 20 minutes from here, they recruiting from Houston, Texas, all the way to Miami, Florida, if you think about it. So it's a lot of guys like you have to do something that separates yourself. But it's like and sometimes when their parents are not giving it bigger than the world suggestions at home, it's hard for you that just met them, especially when they come from an environment where they don't have a lot of respect for men, or the men in their life have let them down so often. It's hard for you as a new guy to come in, no matter what you've done, to try to help them get somewhere, for them to have enough faith to take that extra step or to work a little bit harder to get out of whatever situation they are in.
All right. We are talking with Coach Heiss Northern. As you can hear, my little puppy power is letting me know that we're about out of time, Coach. But I want to but just ask you about the latest, as they would say, scuttlebutt that's on my beloved campus. And there was this who shot Jack, who dropped the ball on a potential game to be played. And there are a lot of things that go beneath the surface. Do you have any spiel on that before we close out for today?
Yeah, man. So, look. So, my wife, I tell you what, let's go back 2 weeks ago. So, I was at the Prairie View, I want to say Alcorn game, and I was talking with probably about 7 guys that played football at Prairie View or Alcorn that were high school coaches in the Texas area. So I'm talking to one guy that coached at a high school in the area that has won a few state championships. So he was at, one guy used to be at North Shore. So he was saying that they tried to get it to where they could play a single game at Prairie View, and they had it worked out to where, so he was at North Shore. Somebody else that played at Prairie View was at another school in Dallas. I forget which one, maybe DeSoto or Duncanville. And they were trying to get a doubleheader, maybe North Shore against Lake Travis and just say DeSoto against another Houston area school. And they were going to try to play a doubleheader at Prairie View campus, but couldn't get it worked out. So I'm going to tell you, this was what I got from the people that I talked to that I trust what they say. So apparently South Oak Cliff called AD Golf around sometime on Saturday, I think after they won. I forgot who they were playing against. So this is what I got now. I don't know 100%. He tells them, look, I cannot make that call, but if you can give me until Monday, then we probably can get it worked out. But I have to get, so everything at Prairie View is pretty much outsourced. All your parking people, all of your concession stand workers, all of your ticket takers are not the mom and pops people that when I was there, you were going to see them regardless of what was going on. The same people that work football, work basketball, blase. But the South Oak Cliff, I think, had to make a decision on playing the game by sometimes on Sunday. Well, in the meantime, Stephen F. said they called them and say, okay, yes, you guys can play here. But from what I gather, Prairie View did want it to happen, but they could not logistically say. You think about it, if that game is being played this Saturday and you making a call one Saturday to get outsourced people that don't have a contract for that game to come and work that game. I think that's what the problem is, and some people don't see that. They say, oh, here we go, HBCU can't get our business straight. But part of the business is having people there. I don't know how much Prairie View charges for a stadium rental, if that was an issue or not as well, but the fact that they don't have on-campus people to just work football games, and that's probably going to be a well-attended. You can't just say, okay, we're going to have a skeleton crew for PNG, whose whole town is going to shut down when they come, and the jokers from South Oak Cliff who probably thinking Prairie View is in Houston, but they still want to see Prairie View campus because they come to watch Prairie View play in Dallas. And by the way, when you walk into South Oak Cliff campus, you probably going to have to say PVU because every class you walk by either probably went to Grambling or Prairie View, every teacher, I'm saying. So I just think it just was bad timing. But if you're the AD now, you have to have it written that, hey, we may have some high school playoff games because a lot of people want to play that, especially people who have ties to university that now love that new stadium. When I was there, you probably couldn't get the Waller Gladiators to come play on campus. But now you got a nice field house that you can, when those teams come, you can have one of your assistant coaches or your head coach, if he's not on the road recruiting, say, hey, man, all right, let's do a tour of, you might even take both teams. Let's ride around campus with a tour guide. This is the freshman dorm. This is the student center. This is the bowling alley, because they probably don't even know it's a bowling alley. So now you recruiting. Even some of those guys in 4 and 5 stars that probably won't even answer your phone call when you call them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be transferring somewhere else in today's world. You still getting a chance to show them guys your campus, the dorms, the beach volleyball in the back, the fishing pond, the new weight room, the locker room, and the field. And, man, I tell you this, and I know I sound like I'm back coaching at Prairie View, but I took one of my son's friends on Prairie View campus that lives in Cypress, Texas, had no idea that's where Prairie View University was. The second thing, when I drove him around campus and was pointing out different things to him, he was like, man, this is way better than I thought it was. And I'm saying to myself, what did you think? It is what it is, but I tell you what, Mr. AD Golf, I only talked to you 2 times, and you probably don't remember. But I think I know one thing that'll be on agenda is for next football season to have where if somebody does call, we can host a football game between the two teams. They played against each other. This is gonna be the third year in a row. South Oak Cliff won once. PNG won a state championship last year, and to have people on your campus, and especially if you could charge $3 for parking, man, it's probably gonna be close to, I would say, 10 to 12,000 at a minimum at that game, and you can the money you're gonna make off concessions and parking, and if you go out there with a Prairie View Trump and sell some T-shirts and hats, you'll make a lot of money at them games though. So I'll put that on my agenda if I was the athletic director.
Well, yeah, and even if you didn't charge for parking or whatever, just make it accessible, have security or whatever, get it to display it. And you brought back some memories when you said the Waller Gladiators.
Oh, yeah. Hey, man, look, Mike, we would laugh because we would come to work on Sundays or be leaving the office on Sundays, and, man, it would be full-fledged football games on Blackshear in Blackshear Stadium without an ounce of security and an ounce of ambulance out there. So we used to laugh like, man, jokers out there, like they say, 37U, playing football, having fun, drinking beer on the sideline.
Well, Coach, look, I thank you for taking me back memory lane, man. We done ran a little over. My puppy powers and got out of control over here. And we're going to get together, man. So I know you're pulling for the Dags, and we'll talk about the wrap-up next week, all right?
All right, then.
All right, Coach Heist-Milton, I'm the radio guy. You guys be blessed. We'll see you on the other side.